Casey, what's good, bro? So a couple of things in your swing that are sort of standing out. I think the first thing is just understanding why you're not creating forward shaft lean, right? So if we look at it from the face-on view, you see at impact, your handle is actually back on your right thigh. And the more that that sort of lines up together, or the club head even passes the hands, the faster that club face is changing degrees, lofts, and also low point, as well as the height. So you'll find like a lot of your short iron stuff will come up a lot shorter, maybe be a little spinnier. So we really want to kind of understand that it's not just a matter of sort of just dragging the handle in front, because there's a reason why your body's not allowing you to square the face. And to me, that starts in the setup. So if you look at my left arm, the inside of my left elbow, the more that I turn it this direction, which would be external, so think of like palm up, the less that I'm able to flex and turn the handle. Okay, so think about that. If this is turned all the way out, which yours tends to be, generally it'll make the left hand weak. But the big thing for you is now you can't roll this face. You can flex a little bit, but you can't really roll it. In fact, the only way to create forward shaft lean is to actually pull and bend this left arm, which you see like Victor Hovland or Jordan Spieth sort of doing. So the matchup in order to create forward shaft lean is going to be different based on grip type. So if I say, well, one thing that would help you right off of the bat is if you take your palm up and you start turning it all the way until the palm is on the other side. That would be maxing out the range of motion of this shoulder internally, which is this direction, and then somewhere in between both extremes. So your first is palm up, your second one is palm like towards the target, the other direction. Somewhere in between is going to be neutral, or if you want a reference point, the left elbow is going to point more away from your rib cage and more towards the target. To you, that might feel like this left hand gets slightly stronger. That's fine. I don't really care, because this lower forearm works independently in a lot of ways from this shoulder. Okay, so if you turn this elbow towards the target, you can still have your grip kind of neutral or slightly weaker with the left hand, but now you're going to be able to what's called supinate and roll. So not only can I flex, I can now roll this club, and if I add some body motion, you can see how that's going to create a ton of forward shaft lean. But remember, there's two things that I saw that was causing your issues. The other one is when you set up, you tend to have your butt way back and behind your heels. And so as you go back, your first move is always going to be a little out. And then from there, you're going to sort of roll and get this club sort of laid off at the top. Okay, a laid off shaft, unless you side bend and tilt, which means you'll block it or drop kick it, which I'm sure you've done before, is going to want to work more down, around, and left. Okay, so think about the opposite. The more the shaft crosses the line, the more it tends to sort of shallow early with some amount of rotation instead of pull down. The more the shaft is laid off with any sort of force or rotation, the shaft actually wants to work this direction. So as you go from your heels to your toes, you'll stand up, and then from there you're only adding even more loft to your equation. Okay, so step one would be get this left elbow to turn in and practice turning this left palm, flexing down and rolling it so that you can see the palm of your left hand as you come through. So you can just practice that supination and roll move. Okay, the second thing is you need to work on your balance points. So what I have here, this is just a half foam roller, right? So if we did yours, you'd be more sitting back in your butt and your heels. You'd move towards your toes, which would mean you'd fall off this way in this drill. And then of course you'd move a little more towards your toes, stand up, fall forward. So this is a great little device to get the feeling of what I would call is a more linear pressure shift, which is going to keep you from standing up, which is adding loft at the bottom. So what I would do is just hop on this, Get your balance a little more towards the front of your shoelaces. Get your butt under you a little bit. And then from there, just make swings where you're feeling like you're moving more this direction, never this way and that way. Okay, so I have one of these in my house and I just practice this all the time. That's what you see. My right foot looks a lot more banked or rolled, right? From there, what you can do is you can actually grab a water bottle and then you practice with your setup. Practice just hitting some little shots where you're just kind of rolling. You can still push and turn, but you want your pressure moving more this direction, which means your heel's not getting up off of the ground quite as fast, right? So that'll keep you a little bit more in terms of a linear pressure shift. The final thing I would do is a very standard drill. So you grab this stick, again, making sure that this left elbow is pointing away from your ribs and out towards the target. And then you can practice putting them together. So taking little swings where you roll this ankle and actually turn and roll down this face. You're gonna hit a lot of little wedges and pitching wedges and 9-irons where you just kind of feel those balance points being more across the middle of your toes instead of towards heel to toe. And then obviously you can turn down this left wrist. So as you do that, you're gonna create a much lower dynamic loft. And then from there, we have some things that we can kind of do. I like to talk a little bit more about your backswing, but I think just in general, getting you those two pieces in first will be really good for your swing. Let me know, buddy.